Well, greetings, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Long time no see. I'm so glad to be with you this morning, and I really enjoy it. I really do. I really enjoy this time. My title of my lesson today is called Facing the Impossible. Let me ask you all a question. I mean, just as you're sitting there, think about it. I can't see the raise of hands because this is recorded, but who has faced situations in your life that seemed there was no answer to? I mean, you were totally boxed in. I mean, at times in which, no matter which way you turned, it seemed like that would just make it worse, or there was just no answer to it, or something's going on. And you're straining and straining, trying to find out exactly which way to go. And no matter which way you go, it's a failure, it seems like. A high probability that's going to make things worse, like I said. I want to share with you a situation in my life in just a moment, but I think that about some examples that I think about in the Bible of people, and I'm sure some come to your mind too, that have faced situations that were totally impossible to solve in their own limited energy and their own limited wisdom and power, what they have. I'll give you a few examples of non-biblical, but from history. I mean, you know the story of Abraham Lincoln and what he went through and all the failures of getting into politics and all the discounted till he ends up being president, which is an impossibility within itself. And then when he is president, the nation breaks into civil war. And he's trying to bring a divided nation into peace when there was such hatred and such animosity. That was so impossible that he strived for. And then a lady by the name of Helen Keller, you know her story. She had no sight and she had no hearing, but yet Keller became a renowned author and activist, inspiring so many to keep striving and to give people like that a chance. I mean, she became famous all but for those huge deficits in her life. And then a great lady that I greatly admire, a great sports person called William Rudolph, who had polio, and despite that impossibility to run, she became an Olympic champion, earning 3 gold medals in the 1960 Olympics. We got to read about her. It's unbelievable. And there's so many more that we can name through history. But let's go back a little further, okay? Now, here's a situation. There stands Moses. He's on the rock overlooking this big sea, and it's just frothing with all kind of whatever, and the depth was so deep. Behind him were thousands and thousands of Pharaoh's army that were on their heels just over the other side of the hill coming. And there below him, below the rock, were the thousands of Jewish people who have escaped from it, trusting in Moses. And there was Moses between them and the Red Sea. And he could not, what could he go? If he went toward the Pharaoh, they would go back in slavery and die, most likely. If he go to the sea, it will drown. An impossibility moment. And he stood there on that rock trying to face it. What would you do, was it said. Now we know the ending of the story, but Moses didn't. All he had was his faith, and we'll get to that a little more in just a moment. But that was an impossibility. And you go into story after story of Adam and Eve being thrown out of the garden, how they came from an impossible, wonderful place to an impossible situation to begin mankind. And you go into Samson, who was blinded by his own selfishness and his own greed, and he was blinded and tied between pillars. Impossible situation, but God spared him. Okay, you got the idea. And go through your own mind of all the Bible stories, things of this nature. But let me point out a story that happened to me in a personal way that I want to share with you. And I don't think I've shared this before, but it's a time in my life that really changed my life in so many ways in faith. Now, I grew up in South Texas, and it had a lot of adventures doing that. But I'm not sure if you remember back in the 60s, but there was a hurricane by the name of Carla that was coming through. And it was a terrible, terrible hurricane. And I was about first grade or second grade at the time, and I was very young, in a place called League City, which now is a big city attached to Houston, where NASA is located. Now, back then, it wasn't that way. It was devastating, this Hurricane Carla. Homes were destroyed, huge trees uprooted, all the electrical lines were thrown down, and there was no electricity flowing into the homes, and the water just kept getting higher and higher with this torrential rain. And so all these snakes and alligators came up into our yard. It was a terrible thing. And that was just the first half of the hurricane. And then came the eye of the hurricane over our house, and it got completely still. My dad warned me, says, look, the backside of the hurricane is coming. So it won't be very long before it hits us again. So batten down the hatches, be quiet, be still, don't go outside, wherever it may be. Well, I've been contained in that house for so long, and so I wanted to get out. So when he wasn't looking, busy doing something else, I said, well, I'll just go peek outside. And my bicycle was tied to the front porch so it wouldn't be blown away. So I got out, and I said, I'll go out just down the street and look a little bit and come right back. He won't even notice. And I got on my bike, and I went around big trees that were laying in the road and electrical lines that were sparking with all kind of electricity, and I avoided them a lot. And there was this road, this dirt road that ran right a block down the road and just ran out in the middle of the fields. And on both sides was a ditch. We call them bar ditches, but a ditch. Well, I started going down that road, and I said, I just want to go down and see what I can see down that area down there. And as I started going down, I noticed that there were some strange objects, things that were on the road. I couldn't quite tell what it was until I got closer. And I found out they were water moccasins that were traveling across the road from one ditch to the other. Well, by that time, I'd already committed myself, and I thought they were sticks or something. So I started running over a few of them. Now, all of a sudden, I look down and I see these water moccasins jump around when I ran over them. And now I couldn't turn around because I had to stop and turn around. I couldn't do that with the snakes. And way down the road was a turnaround area that I could go to. I was committed. Well, as I went down that road, I heard a thump going on. And I looked down in the front spokes of my bicycle, and there was a small water moccasin that had got caught and wove itself into my spokes of my tire. So as I'm going down, that's that brum, brum, brum. Well, I slowed down thinking, well, maybe I killed it, by doing that. I slowed down, I looked down, and he started wiggling. So he was kind of thrashed around, but he was well alive, and he was mad. So there I was committed, and I made the turn, and I started down this road. Now, I had a choice to make. The choice I had to make is, if I stopped, I got bitten. If I continued, then that snake is going to be right there in my spokes, and what am I going to do with it when I get out of that situation? That snake is still going to be waiting for me no matter what. That was a situation in which there was no answer to it. I had got myself in trouble, an impossible situation. So many circumstances in our life, and I know in my life continually on, in life experiences, that we have got into situations financially, medically, children-wise, grandchildren, or relationships, all kind of things in our life that we get ourselves into, or life just brings it to us. Hurricanes come and they come. And the thing is that we get into that situation and we try to think of an answer to it. We try to think of a solution to it, and which way we turn, it doesn't seem possible. We're at the Red Sea moment, overlooking the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind us situations. We do this, gets hurt. We do this, it's a failure on that side. And no matter what, we're there. And it just seems like down deep in us a little bit that we pray, God help me in this situation like that, and we don't see the Red Sea parting necessarily right in front of us. And we're getting to dire straits, and we worry and we stress out and don't know which way to go. One time, an author, I don't remember who it was, made this statement: running away from problems only increases the distance to the solution. Isn't that great? I love that. Henry Ford, the great automaker, said this: most people spend more time and energy going around problems than trying to solve them. And sometimes, though, you can't go around them. They're right in your face, and that's what he's really talking about, is as we face our problems, as we try to figure out what to do, what is the answer to it as we face them, where it may be. So what I want to talk about is a story in the Bible about a woman by the name of Hannah, one of my heroes of the Bible, the mother of Samuel, the great prophet. And she had some terrible problems to deal with. Now, the Bible tells us that there was a man named Elkanah, who had two wives named Peninnah and Hannah were his wives. Now, this in itself, having two wives, is pretty hard to deal with anyway, if I could relate to that a little bit. But Peninnah had children, and Hannah did not, which generated even more problems inside the relationship with Hannah. And it says this in 1 Samuel, 1st chapter. Her rival, Peninnah, also provoked her severely to make her miserable because the Lord had blessed her womb. Now it was year by year when she went up to the house of the Lord that she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat. So Peninnah took advantage of the situation and said, "You're not much of a woman or much of a wife to Elkanah." And so she provoked her, and it caused great dissension. Well, now, this is not a trivial situation. In the Jewish culture, not able to have children, which was bringing offspring to the husband and to bring into the heritage of all their riches and estate and everything like this, it proved the worth of a woman much more than it does today. And that culture, where it may be, is that she was a less of a woman, a less of a wife in this context, where it may be, and it was devastating. And that's it. So when Peninnah saw that, she was trying to put Hannah, saying she's not worthy, and I'm the more worthy one because I could have children, whoever it may be, from my husband. Now, what I want to do is take that scenario real quickly now and put three things to it about lessons we can learn from Hannah, how she handled her problems here. It was an impossible situation, not by her wants, not by her deeds could she have children, not by her initiative she could do it. It was all impossible in her side. And then the environment of her home was an impossibility too. So where does she turn? Number one thing I want us to remember about this, we've got to take our troubles to God and put them in his hands. Now, that's easy to say, and I say that not in a trivial moment. To be able to come to a point like Moses, like Hannah, many others like that, is to fully trust in God. And that's hard. That is where our faith is really, really tested when we get to those impossible situations. Because we want a quick solution. We're afraid, we're scared, or maybe we're angry, all kind of emotions, and that clouds us. And so we desperately call on God to help us sometimes, but do we really believe he'll do anything about it down deep? Or do we come to peace about it? Hannah, in her grief, and she was grieving, took her problems to God. She knew that only he could help her no matter what. And so in verse 12 of the first chapter it says, she prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish, and that she'd continued praying to God without stopping because she persisted in God's face, saying, Lord, I need you. If this is your will, I need you. So Hannah shared her deepest troubles and concerns with God. She understood that only he could solve them. Nothing else could happen. And so she put totally her trust in God. Number two, God provides calm and peace in our life. After taking her troubles to God, Hannah felt relief and felt renewed joy because she placed herself in God's hands totally in trust. God saw that trust. God saw that love, and God blessed her with the relief and peace. And I'll tell you what, it's somewhat of a human reaction too. When you fully know that you've done all you can do and that the only answer you've turned to it, a lot easier to let go and let it happen. And it says here in verse 18, she went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad because she turned it over to God. And she felt that peace. She had received an answer. Her attitude, her outlook changed after putting herself and the situation into his hands. So when you have problems and tensions and anxiety as they weigh on you, the best thing to do is to take your challenges to God and fully trust him and believe he will answer according to his will. That's the key to the whole thing, and trusting that. The third thing is that trust God to intervene according to his will. After giving her problems to the Creator in prayer, we then have to wait for his answer. Hannah's life had to continue on no matter what God said, what God did about this. God may not answer as fast or in an exact way that we hope for, but he does promise to answer and help us and genuinely take care of our difficulty as we trust in him in our faith. Now for Hannah, the answer seemed to have come pretty quickly, for it says in verses 19 and 20, "Then they rose early in the morning and worshiped before the Lord and returned and came to their house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son and called his name Samuel, saying this, because I have asked for him from the Lord." So God answered her in a direct way. But sometimes God answers in his own way, in his own time, like I said before. And that's called trust. What a blessing it is when God intervenes in a problem that we thought we had no solution. God in his love wants us to trust him wholeheartedly, because that's the whole key to things. See, the problem is not a big deal to God. I mean, it's concerned. He cares about us and our difficulty, our anxiety, but the power to take care of it is not a big deal to God. What he's focusing on is our faith. That's what he wants to keep strong and build in our lives. And that's what he's focused on. And that's where the whole crux of the whole thing comes in, is how much we trust him in his situation. So after God intervenes, Hannah does the key thing that I want us to remember this. When she received the answer to her prayers, she gave thanks to God in joy, saying this, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. My horn, my strength, is exalted in the Lord. I smile at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation." She didn't say, "Oh, that's over with," and go about her way. No, she gave full credit to her Lord. She gave full credit to who got her out of that situation, who blessed her, who answered a prayer that she really needed, and her promises that she would worship God forever and ever. I'm sure in her prayers, she did that in prayer. So our Creator promises to answer our prayer, intervenes in our situation, deliver us from problems. But we got to understand something. Deliver us problems most time that we create. In Hannah's case, it wasn't. It was just the way it was in her life. However, many times we do, and God will help us. God will give us the insight. God will give us the strength. God will give us the wisdom to do whatever it may be. Well, let's get back to the story of where I was. If you remember, I was pedaling, and I had a water moccasin in the front spokes of my tire. Now here's the other part of it. Here come the hurricane right toward me. I could see the wall of it coming. And I was from home. I had to get back home. I had a snake in my tires and this kind of thing. So what I could do. So I had to make a choice. So I'm sure I prayed. I don't recall much, but I was a person of faith even at that age. God helped me as I started pedaling as fast as I could to get back. And I had to run over those snakes again, but I still had that snake hanging in there waiting on me. Well, by chance, as I was going along, as I was pedaling as fast as I can, trying to think what I'm going to do, but just trying to get through the situation the best I can, the momentum of me pedaling so fast threw the snake out of the spokes. I saw it fly out, luckily not toward me, but off to the side. And it ended up in a field out there somewhere. And I'm sure that snake went back and told some friends going, "You have no idea what I just went through." All dizzy and everything. But anyway, and there I was heading for home. And I was away from those snakes. But then I had the problem of hurricane parents getting ready to get back on me. But I got home safely, tied my bike back up, and got back inside. And my dad had some kind words to show me what I should have done. Often we don't know what the answer is to our problems. They seem impossible. We stretch our imaginations. We tap into our experiences. We solicit opinions from friends, but to no avail. We have a choice. We give up and stop pedaling and resign ourselves to the fate, or we keep pedaling in faith and hope and God when we do our part in trust and prayer and letting God help us, and we continue with our faith and keep striving in our own way, in our limited power. God will fill in that gap and will take care of us no matter what. May you have a blessed day, and may your snakes and your spokes today be small ones, and they fly out when you most need them to leave. The Lord bless you, and I'll talk to you soon again.